is back. Fleetwood Mac.
We're celebrating, 30 years of me and John playing together, just as partners. You're going like, wow, we've been doing it, and you go, but 20 years since we made Rumours. It's a lot of music has happened between then and now.
Stevie Nicks, Mick Fleetwood, John McVie, Christine McVie, and Lindsey Buckingham. Fleetwood Mac. Grammys, 23 albums, 80 million sold, $800 million, one distinctive sound.
I never really tried to figure out exactly what it is. It was sure powerful.
This is the story of a rock and roll resurrection. It's the reconnection of a legendary band that has overcome the perils of the rock and roll machine.
You get caught up in this whole big machine, this big selling machine, and it's difficult to keep your perspective. It's difficult to know who your friends are.
Even as much as crazy as it got, there was still a part of a family thing that went along with our band everywhere.
Tonight, how after more than a decade since their last tour, Fleetwood Mac is together again, recreating the sound that virtually defined an era of rock and roll.
In my opinion, the band's playing 30–40% better than we've ever played before. It's just, it's great.
Fleetwood Mac is just a big bonus. It's just a big, fabulous adventure bonus.
The rock and roll, which is something that people forget sometimes with Fleetwood Mac. We're loud. Juices flowing. We're playing better than we ever have.
SA check. 1, 2, 3.
To the fans of Fleetwood Mac, the sound of their music was simply perfect. But the challenges of putting this band back together was a long way from perfectly simple.
You know, the way this thing came about, it was such a fluke.
We hadn't spent a lot of time together in a long, long time.
Nobody gets on the stage with a red credential. Okay?
In 1995, Lindsey Buckingham was in the midst of recording a solo project when he decided he wanted to add something special to his music.
I really love this guy.
So he asked Mick to add some drum work to his album. Then he asked John to play a few riffs on the bass. And then he asked Christine to sing harmony.
One thing led to another, and suddenly we all were in the control room of the studio saying, gee, this feels pretty good. Isn't that weird? So it just kind of fell into place on its own.
Yet the odds against Fleetwood Mac succeeding the second time around were incredible. It was nothing short of amazing that they'd even made it to this point. They were once the leaders of the rock and roll pack, and they knew it was a long and winding road back to the top. A challenge that would make it even sweeter once they got there.
I mean, the reality was, from that little dream, which came true, I would have had no idea that 30 years later I would be sitting here doing this interview. I dreamed a dream and it came true, so watch out.
When plans for the reunion were announced, it quickly became evident that audiences had been waiting a very long time to become reacquainted with their old friends. Tickets for their first reunion concert were almost impossible to find.
It's exciting, of course. I mean, if there's the same kind of response from 15-year-old children as there was from their parents, then we'll be extremely happy campers.
Part of this extraordinary reunion tour is the challenge of playing music for a whole new generation.
Well, I mean, one hopes that through their parents they might have got a copy of Rumours or something.
A lot of the people who've come down to rehearsals and have heard what we've been doing live have been astonished at how dynamic and how forceful the live performances are.
It's been like plugging in an old car or something.
For Fleetwood Mac, 30 years of memories came rushing back. Each member has lived through good times and bad.
Listen to the window, watch the sunrise.
But the chain has been reconnected, this time stronger and more powerful.
It's a great feeling to have gone back and got it right and gone on with our lives in a positive way.
Fleetwood Mac was a monstrously successful and hugely influential rock and roll band. But they were no overnight success story.
We really went from nothing to getting $200 a piece a week, and then in 4 weeks, $400 a week. Money everywhere. Money on the floor, money in pockets, money in the washing machine.
In 1967, Mick Fleetwood, John McVie, and legendary guitarist Peter Green formed the first Fleetwood Mac, several years before they had any idea that Stevie Nicks, Christine Perfect, or Lindsey Buckingham even existed. The original band had a successful string of #1 singles in Europe, including a Peter Green classic made famous in the U.S. by Carlos Santana, Black Magic Woman.
I got a black magic woman. I got a black magic woman. Yes, I got a black magic woman. Got me so blind I can't see.
But through the years, the band had a series of guitar-playing frontmen and backup singers who never quite worked out.
They've all gone crazy, basically, right?
In fact, Fleetwood Mac had a terrible time keeping a band together. In 1970, founding member Peter Green left Fleetwood Mac following a drug-related breakdown. But soon things would change dramatically for Fleetwood Mac. Perhaps it was chance, perhaps it was destiny. In either case, what was about to happen would alter the world's musical landscape forever.
I remember going to see Fleetwood Mac before I ever joined it. I used to trail them around because I thought they were so great.
In 1970, Christine Perfect was a blues singer with the British band Chicken Shack. She had been a fan of Fleetwood Mac for years. Christine met John McVie after a concert. They fell in love and were married after a 10-day courtship.
Well, when I married Chris, the name was Perfect, and then she married me.
It was indeed a perfect beginning when John invited his new wife into the band. Together, the new Fleetwood Mac toured America, opening for bands like the Grateful Dead. Mick, John, and Christine believed they could make it in the U.S., but agreed they needed to find a dynamic frontman. Then they found Lindsey Buckingham.
It was extraordinary, and I've never seen anybody play like that.
Richard Dashett was Fleetwood Mac's producer and friend.
Lindsey's an awesome guitar player, and he used finger style, which is more of a bluegrass technique, as opposed to most of my other friends or people I was observing were using a pick.
Lindsey Buckingham was a talented but struggling guitarist living in Los Angeles. He and his singer-songwriter girlfriend, a beautiful young woman named Stevie Nicks, were having a rough time playing LA bars, just trying to make ends meet.
I was really tired of being poor, and I was really tired of having no money. And, you know, we were really struggling, and it was starting to become not very much fun.
Stevie and Lindsey were struggling so much, in fact, that Stevie's first Los Angeles success story was a long way from anything musical.
Lindsey and I lived with Keith Olsen, our producer, and then in order for Keith to get rid of us so he could have his house back, he paid me $250 a month to come and clean his house twice a week, which I did an incredibly good job. And with that $250, I paid for Lindsay and my rent.
Stevie says that she was so poor that she was nearly ready to give up her dream of playing music. She was still cleaning her producer's house when Mick and John approached Lindsay about joining the band. Lindsay said sure, but under one condition.
I just said, well, you know, Stevie and I are package deal. So that's how that came about.
Despite being broke, Stevie and Lindsay didn't say yes to Fleetwood Mac right away.
The first thing that I did was go and get all the Fleetwood Mac records and go home and listen to them back to back, you know, back to front, back to back, all of them, to see, is there some way that Lindsay and I can add something to this, and can they add something to us? I love the mystical part of rock and roll, and you do that with me, Lindsay. So I think that we can add something to this band. I think we can join this band and not be just doing it for the money.
So it was on New Year's Eve of 1974 that rock history was unknowingly made, when Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham became the final two members of Fleetwood Mac. A rock and roll legend was born.
This is the most unlikely group of people to somehow meld into anything that has unity at all.
There was, though, a tremendous unity among these five musicians, and they quickly headed for the studio. And each of them quickly found their niche within the group. Stevie emerged as a particularly creative force, capturing the poetic, mystical, and philosophical rock and roll sound that would become Fleetwood Mac's mantra and signature.
And I saw my reflection in the snow-covered hills till the landslide brought me down.
I really always just wanted to be a teacher. And so I tend to look at my work as teaching. So every time I write a song, then I'm trying to teach somebody something.
Well, she's a poet, Stevie. She's far more of a poet than I am, or a prose writer. And she writes journals after journals after journals, all about God knows what. I mean, just very highly sort of metaphysical thing.
I'm trying to get some point across and some philosophy of how I did it and how I got out of it, or how I lived through it.
The band soon began to gel. There were two couples, Stevie and Lindsay, and John and Christine, and their dear friend Mick. Together they wrote, together they recorded, and together they released their first album, Fleetwood Mac. The album's third single, Rhiannon, shot to the top of the charts. The year was 1975, and Fleetwood Mac had their first #1 song.
To play live, you get that bounce back from the audience, and you know they're getting it, you're getting it. And that moment is that moment, and it's gone.
Fleetwood Mac, the album, sold 4 million copies. That success led to a concert tour, photo sessions, press parties, and more studio work. The band was elated. They were together, they were rocking, and they were on a roll.
But we were all sort of tied to one another with the big umbilical cord kind of thing. And
everybody wanted a piece of what was quickly becoming rock and roll's biggest phenomenon. But the people who were Fleetwood Mac, the members of the band, were somehow lost in the sweet glow of success.
Goosebumps.
The fact that you go on stage and you are, mass adulation is washing over you. Unconditional adulation. How do you deal with that and come off stage and go home to your wife and worry about, the normal things that everyone has to worry about?
Fleetwood Mac was caught on a roller coaster ride they couldn't control. Yet this ride would prove to be nothing compared to the rocket ship they were about to board. Their next album, Rumors, would launch the group to superstardom, beyond anything they could imagine. And their sudden success would burn through friendships and relationships. It would, they say, even threaten their sanity.
It seemed we were sort of traveling in this bubble called us.
Next, Fleetwood Mac learns that superstar success comes at a very steep price.
when you're in Fleetwood Mac and when you have shows to do and other stuff to do, you can't bring your private life into that.
Then the excesses of rock and roll take their toll on the founding fathers of Fleetwood Mac.
There was lots of alcohol, and there was a pretty damn fair chunk of drugs flying around.
When Behind the Music returns.
You have 1,000 assistants, you have 1,000 people to do stuff for you. That makes you very crazy.
Fleetwood Mac.
By the mid-'70s, Fleetwood Mac was on the fast track and in full stride. There were national television appearances, several big money deals, and sold-out concerts everywhere. Their debut album had been tremendously successful. So they went back into the studio hoping to recapture the magic of album #1. What they couldn't have known was that the magic was just beginning.
Rhiannon was out as a hit. That was putting pressure on us. It was doing very well. I think the album was up to 2 or 3 million sales at the time while we were in the studio. So suddenly there was a tremendous pressure to do well on the Rumors album.
Fleetwood Mac was determined to create an album even more powerful than their first. They had no idea that this album, Rumors, would be so successful. Nor did they understand what toll it would take on them as musicians and as individuals.
18 to 20 hours a day, we were obsessed because of the deadlines. We always had deadlines.
With pressures mounting and friendships being tested, it appeared this once close-knit band was beginning to unravel.
There was a lot of theater and drama in all of that was not particularly a musical consideration.
I describe the recording of Rumors as lengthy moments of boredom punctuated by sheer moments of terror.
This group that had just months earlier been so fresh and energetic was starting to feel the effects of success.
The reality was, and the truth of the matter was, that there was lots of alcohol and there was a pretty damn fair chunk of drugs flying around. My whole thing was cocaine.
Any discussion about drugs, you really have to put, to some degree, in the context of those times. The subculture of drugs really was considered to be the norm in the circles that we traveled in. And not just with the artists, but the people who were making the phone calls in the offices, and everyone.
With the drugs and alcohol, yeah, that was there. Cocaine and marijuana were the specific drugs of choice.
I can certainly attest personally that my life was majorly involved in the use of cocaine for 20 years. You know, it's something right now I look back on it and I like to try and keep it, which is impossible for me because I ramble, as concise as possible. I wished it had never happened. I don't recommend it. There was an element of romance involved, which you cannot deny.
Oh, Daddy, you soothe me with your smile. You're letting me know you're the best thing in my life.
I was basically having a ball, being crazy, and being socially how I wanted to be, which was turned into a nightmare because it controlled my whole existence. You know, I get off a plane, I have to meet a dealer or whatever. It was horrible, and you became totally beholden to it.
All the mistakes in my life have been alcohol-induced. I'm not a very good person when I drink. Drugs in the early and mid-'70s was just part of the environment. It was part of the culture. So was it part of the studio.
Drugs didn't create what we were seeing. They happened to be an additive that was around.
The album was not drug-induced. It was soul-induced, instinct-induced.
Despite all the trials and tribulations, from drug abuse to clashes in personalities, Fleetwood Mac fought back. Despite the heartache, the music that would soon be Rumors was pitch perfect and beautiful.
Back on gold dust.
But the antagonism between the band members was intensifying. Both Stevie and Lindsay's relationship and John and Christine's were on the rocks.
I think that it was the only way we could really communicate with each other at that point was through the music, and it was the only platform on which we had everything completely in common.
Stevie and I would have to work together, and we'd have to look at each other and sing to each other.
It's very, very hard to break up when you're in a band because you have to be together the next morning at the breakfast room.
Looking back on it, it is majorly dysfunctional.
I don't think anything that would have happened would have surprised anybody, you know. It was part and parcel with just the tone, the excesses, the whole, you know, the sense of what was going on around us in general in those days.
What amazed just about everyone surrounding Fleetwood Mac was that despite all the distractions, the music continued to grow stronger and more powerful. For 9 straight months, the band kept writing, singing, and recording every day, 20 hours a day.
I mean, it was a very complex situation, you know, 2 couples breaking up, and yet having to play the hand out on a professional level, having to put your, say, Stevie's feelings for me and my feeling for Stevie, putting them over in this corner of the room and getting on with your process in the rest of the room. It was very challenging.
Meanwhile, Fleetwood Mac had committed to a demanding concert schedule. Their sound was great. The band was explosive. The performances were passionate. But the strain and tension between the band members had increased, and the only emotion they seemed to share was heartache.
When you're in Fleetwood Mac and when you have shows to do and other stuff to do, you can't bring your private life into that.
That was a challenge to constantly try to find your bigger self and to rise above that.
And for performance after performance, Fleetwood Mac did rise above all the distractions, and they did meet the challenges of being a supergroup. It required, however, a super effort from each member.
You learn how to be a mediator. I mean, I'm a big mediator in Fleetwood Mac. I try to keep the peace, and I always did.
So the band played on, writing and producing such classics as Dreams, Go Your Own Way, and The Chain.
The Chain was really just the sense of the 5 of us sticking it out, I think. Chain, keep us together.
As the months of making Rumors wore on, the challenge of sticking it out would become increasingly difficult.
I can remember times where there's absolute tears. I don't think there was a time when any of us didn't cry during that project. And there was a lot of anger, a lot of yelling, a lot of very human, healthy interaction. That's why the album reflects that, because it was real. It came from the gut. It was not contrived. But it was a painful process.
I can't truthfully deny that there wasn't any good times during those crazy days, as there were bad times and confused times which you tend to forget. And you remember all the romance of what was going on, which is a sort of detrimental testimony to leave behind.
Devastation leads to writing really good things.
Despite the tremendous success that Rumors would bring Fleetwood Mac in the late 70s, the next decade proved to be a painful one for this quintessential hit-making machine.
Seeing people hurt, seeing people's ideas rejected, seeing people, it was like a microcosm of life in that studio. And like I said, it was hard, very hard, and sometimes punctuated by moments of joy, but not many. We all cared very much for each other, but it was like squeezing water out of a turnip or a sponge.
Mick, While watching his friends and bandmates' romantic relationships dissolve before his eyes, suddenly found his own marriage coming to an abrupt end.
Jenny, my then wife and mother of my 2 lovely children, did the right thing. She went back to England and set up camp there. And I was stoned half the time. I watched them walk down the garden path, and just in slow motion going like, well, there's my wife and there's my 2 children walking out of my life.
I remember one night after dinner in Sausalito, walking out after talking about it, and Mick literally broke down in my arms, which was an interesting scene as it was, because I'm short and he's tall, and he had to stoop down. It was something.
It was all like a dream. Terrible.
It was as if Fleetwood Mac was living inside a musical soap opera. At one point, Mick and Stevie would have an affair.
That relationship with Stevie was one that meant a lot to me.
Nevertheless, this was yet one more issue facing this now troubled band, especially for Stevie's ex-boyfriend, Lindsay.
I was the one who was sorting out her songs and making them into records, and there were times when I had the urge not to want to do that, not to want to help her.
Meanwhile, John and Christine were barely talking, and Stevie and Lindsay were often fighting.
Stevie and I talked, but sometimes it was difficult not to have it be confrontational or combative.
After 9 months of living with Rumors the album, and with the rumors about each other, Fleetwood Mac's second album was released. The band knew the music was good, but they could never have expected the explosive response Rumors would have on their lives. Rumors sold 800,000 copies in 1 week. The album knocked the Eagles' Hotel California out of #1 and stayed in the top slot for 8 months. It would one day become the #3 selling album of all time. Fleetwood Mac had become a bona fide supergroup.
Unless you're in it, unless you're on the inside, unless you are a rock star, there is no way you could possibly hope to understand what it's like.
So Fleetwood Mac one more time hit the road and a whole new lineup of tour dates. While their relationships were certainly strained, Fleetwood Mac always seemed to be able to express their raw and tender emotions through their performances.
But Songbird, for years, excuse me, for years, we used to close the show with it, and every time, stand in the wings, and Mick would stand with me, and we'd both get a tear. Whether it's because it's a beautiful song or because it evokes memories, I don't know.
To you, I'll give the world.
Fleetwood Mac continued to play to sold-out crowds and adoring fans everywhere they went. But by the end of the 70s, it was time for the group to record another album, the unenviable task of following up the mega hit, Rumors.
We were getting sick of Rumors, I gotta tell you. You hear Rumors, that we heard that album so much on the radio that we were beginning to puke.
We didn't make Rumors too. We didn't follow the formula. If it works, run it into the ground.
By the time Fleetwood Mac would go into the studio to record Tusk, their friendships and relationships had sunk to an all-time low. The band says they couldn't even agree on what songs to put on the album.
When we were doing Tusk, I suppose, there was a parting of the ways a little bit, at least from a musical point of view,
So there was a lot of conflict, a lot of vying for spaces on the album and trying to get other people to approve it or accept it.
One of the results of this strong-willed conflict was that suddenly there were so many tracks from various band members that Tusk became a double album.
Till I become... I couldn't do any of that.
Although Tusk ended up selling over 4 million copies, that astonishing number wasn't huge enough to impress the critics. According to the press, it was a disappointment. That harsh criticism was especially painful for Lindsay, who was the creative force behind the music.
If we left your melody on there and I just sang like the lower part or something.
It was hurtful at first. I know it hurt Lindsay a lot. When Lindsay started catching a lot of guff and grief about, why didn't you do another Rumors? And look, it didn't sell. We only sold 4 or 5 million double albums instead of
I mean, get a grip, people, you know. I mean, this is, you know, let's not get greedy with...
Bad press didn't stop Fleetwood Mac from taking Tusk on the road. But the Tusk tour in 1980 may have been too much too soon.
You give up everything so that 2 hours is good on stage. Every single minute, all day long, that every one of us do is all put towards that 2 hours on stage. If that goes off well, then everything else is cool. If it doesn't go off good, then somebody screwed up. And you can't do that.
But after nearly 300 days on the road, they admitted they'd become a rock and roll band that was nearly drained of all its passion.
You just stop being emotional. In a lot of ways, you become kind of hard and cold because it's the only way you can exist and get through it.
As the 80s moved forward, the band began to drift. They recorded 5 albums after Tusk. Some did well, some did not. By the time the decade was over, so was the band. Fleetwood Mac had simply stopped playing music.
We all sensed that perhaps Lindsay would leave first. I mean, the very thought of one band member leaving was catastrophic to us because we all felt that each one of us was irreplaceable.
When I left the band, it was not an atmosphere that was very nurturing to creativity. It was not a healthy atmosphere in any way. I mean, everyone had personal problems.
We just couldn't work together anymore.
As the years...
We couldn't be together and also work together. I couldn't have him, you know, telling me that, you know, this song that I wrote wasn't that good, and knowing he was saying that because he was angry about me because of our relationship.
It was kind of a survival move for me emotionally and physically. Things were just so crazy. And I was looking for some sanity.
As years progressed, the members of Fleetwood Mac would endure a series of personal misfortunes that would ultimately force each of them to evaluate their future and reevaluate their past. John had hit an all-time low. His drinking had driven Christine away for good.
All the mistakes in my life have been alcohol-induced.
I think she'd been yelled at one too many times.
After she and John broke up, Christine dated Beach Boy Dennis Wilson. 2 years after their relationship ended, Wilson drowned and Christine was devastated. Stevie then lost her best friend to cancer, and Lindsay says he dropped to an emotional low point. As for Mick, this one-time millionaire was headed straight for bankruptcy. He says cocaine was running his life.
I got totally involved in the whole thing, majorly. And I was functioning. I could have done this interview and you probably wouldn't have known. Big deal. Apart from towards the end, I was fooling myself and you because you knew damn well this guy was stuttering away and sweating like Nixon.
Somehow you let these things drag on and you don't deal with what is the rest of your life.
Finally, they all left, one after the other. And for several years, they essentially lost track of each other, concentrating instead on healing their own rock and roll battle wounds. Then in 1993, after more than a 6-year separation, the members of Fleetwood Mac would once again share a stage. This time, they would come together under the most unlikely circumstances. It was almost by presidential decree. When Bill Clinton was on the road to the White House, Fleetwood Mac's Don't Stop was his battle cry. Everywhere Bill went, so went his newfound campaign song.
I was very flattered that the President of the United States wanted to use Don't Stop as his campaign song. I mean, it's totally thrilling.
When the day finally came for President-elect Clinton to become Commander-in-Chief, it was Bill Clinton himself who played the role of rock and roll politician and brought the Mac back together for a one-time only command performance.
This is beyond weird. This is bizarre. Oh, here comes the Prez. And, oh, I've seen him. Oh, it's Al Gore. And then everyone's clapping on the on-beat.
The performance for the new president gave Fleetwood Mac fans what they had been hoping for, a reunion. And it gave the band a chance to reconnect.
Coming up, the links of the chain are reconnected.
I think the 5 of us getting back together is going to, I think it's enhancing everybody's life.
And the Big Mac is back on the road again.
I like to show off and have fun and emote.
When Behind the Music continues.
In the years after the performance at President Clinton's inauguration, Fleetwood Mac would slowly but surely get reacquainted. The phone calls to each other became more frequent, band members played on each other's solo albums, and almost before any of them knew it, the umbilical cord that had been severed was mending. 20 years after the release of Rumors, Fleetwood Mac was back.
I met up with Mick and asked him to play on my solo album, and he was a totally different person. He was conducting his life in a totally different way than he had been the last time I'd spent any time with him. And I realized, my God, this is somebody I have so much in common with and so much to talk about with, that it was the real Mick. It was not the Mick, behind a whole bunch of other influences.
And when the time came for their 1997 reunion, Fleetwood Mac was ready. Sort of.
Very nervous, very nervous.
You tell that the chair is shaking a little bit. Yes, we're terrified. We're terrified.
Fleetwood Mac's journey had come full circle. They were together again, old friends remembering old times and catching up on the new. Christine is remarried, as is John. Together they have rekindled their friendship, actually trading recipes with one another.
She likes to cook and I like to cook, so we do trade, not every day or every week, but yeah, we see each other every once in a while.
Lindsay has discovered the musical and personal freedom he was searching for, while Stevie is finding peace and solitude at home in Arizona.
This was the girl that I used to live with again, and it was no longer bittersweet, which it had been for so long. It was just sweet.
Lindsay and I, we have something very special. We decided to do this a long, long time ago, and we fought for it. We had a pot of gold that we were searching for together, and we never gave up until we got it. So now that's a pretty great thing. Now the two of us can like link arms and walk out on stage and say to everyone without saying it, we worked very hard for this. We gave up everything for this. So, and we still really like each other,
As for Mick, his 20 years of cocaine abuse is over, and his bankruptcy a mere fading bad dream from the past. Mick Fleetwood is ready for the future and proud of the musical legacy that he's given most of his life to.
I took my love and I took it down.
The first of many shows on the reunion tour drew to a close, and many of the old memories returned to the group. Not so surprisingly, it's the good times Fleetwood Mac remembers best, and there have been plenty of good times to recall, leaving very little time to dwell on or even talk about regret.
What is love?
I know that Lindsay and I have to spend a lot more time together. But our karma says that we have to spend a lot of time together. We have to be in a band for 100 more years together.
Maybe down the street at the Sunset Retirement Home. Every Thursday afternoon. Polkas.
This reconvening it's a truthful reconvening. It's a truthful feel to it. It's a reflection of everyone having healed.